Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Dave Lees.
And I'm Jonathan Byer. Dave, you look like a chic referee.
Oh,
I
thank
think that is
you.
like it's like so like elegant. Yeah.
I'm gonna say that why I'm wearing a okay. This is this and that. We are going to be discussing everything that happened at the third stage of the Grand Prix in France, at the fake event in Russia, and everything going on in the figure skating world. So if you're new here, please subscribe below. Remember to smash that like button. Jonathan, I caught myself because I almost I got a polo and it's unseasonably warm outside, and I
know.
And then I was like, I was about to use a term. I'm like, is it the velvet season? Is this what we should say? Like what?
Yes, it is. This is your version of velvet as opposed to fur. Okay.
I just something almost like I knew that you were going to comment on it, and something was flew out of my mouth. Do you know what I just Googled? Is Indian summer offensive?
I know. I felt awkward even saying it, but I think it is still termed that.
It's still termed that, but not okay. Not okay.
Do they offer an alternative?
Second summer? I think we should just say the velvet season, because you know what? It's elegant. Okay.
I like that. Yeah.
Why don't we all just use the velvet season from now on? All right.
What is this? Velvet? This is beautiful. Yeah. Okay, great.
So yes, this is what I think that we should term it and keep it moving. Well, Jonathan, I don't want to say that I suspected something would happen when I saw the Japan Open, and I was toying around with TSL Rue, which I still want to do, but people didn't get it at the time. It was new. Sometimes explaining jokes is not funny. I'm still working on that. The video, but
I loved it because I think the people that knew what you were doing found it outrageously amazing, but that's because we follow how RU does that. And I guess those that don't and are just seeing it out of the blue were just totally confused.
People were parsing. I think people get very uncomfortable. Listen, in the past, the Federation has absolutely paid certain people to come back. Michelle Kwan got multiple six figures to go to 2002 Skate America.
Yeah, you can incentivize athletes that may otherwise not choose to if you really need them. Yeah.
So Jason Brown decided to compete this season. So did Alexa and Brandon. Now, we cannot say for sure if the Federation somehow incentivized them, but Jonathan, I sure hope they do, because they should in these situations.
It would be a smart move. Yeah. Granted,
based on what figure skating is looking like this season, I wish they had incentivized Kanan Leduc to continue as well. Okay.
Correct. But it was clear maybe at Worlds that they were, I don't know, they might have just been so ready. Yeah.
And maybe Hubble and Donahue, although we have enough dance teams in the US, there's still a lack of star power affecting this season. And people are emerging, but we're in a really one of the most uncomfortable regrowth periods, I think, since the fall of 2006, but new stars emerged very quickly with Mawasada and Kim Yuna that season. Right. So it shifted everything continentally, but it was uncomfortable, I think, in the US. All right. Jason Brown, after his great performance at the Japan Open, is competing at US Nationals. Are you surprised? What do you feel? What are your emotions? Yeah.
Well, you know what? I always thrilled to see him. And again, outside of Ilya, we have a group of men that are talented and interesting, but none seem to be sort of putting it together in a consistent and enough way. Mm-hmm. And we do have 3 spots, is that right, for Worlds this year? So, I mean, it could do some good to sort of round that out. And he's just a joy to always see. What I didn't know, seeing Japan Open, I thought, yes, this would be a very competitive program. He's skating beautifully, all these sorts of things. I just didn't know where he and his body were at. Like if he felt like gearing up for a whole nother season. But of course, like Michelle, actually, to join the season at Nationals is a very different vibe than already having been burnt out from the Grand Prix series. Yeah. Looking at this Grand Prix sort of lineup, though, Jason probably could have done very well on this Grand Prix, but that could have added that much more, wear and tear on the body. So I'll be interested to see how he does at Nationals. I would imagine he's going to do great.
Yeah, well, I want to just give my perspective on this. I will say that when we saw him at the Japan Open, it he just looked so much healthier and better than we saw him a year ago. Now, a year ago, when we saw Jason on the Grand Prix, I was starting to talk about Ilya Malinin because Jason had an ankle injury the summer before the Olympics, which was downplayed. But when we saw him on the Grand Prix, though he medaled, he didn't look as strong to me when physically as when we had seen him, just his power, his stroking. And when we saw Jason at the Japan Open, he looked back to full strength. He didn't look fully rotated on those triple axels because he's been doing shows, but his body and basic skating and his rotation in the air, he looked stronger. He had more pop. He just had everything. And I know everyone loves Jason, so it was super unpopular to voice that a year ago, but it wasn't about him personally. It was about how he looked physically, right? Like in terms of what he could do athletically.
Right.
He did okay. I mean, he did well, enough last season, but not as well as we've seen him do in the past. Even when we saw his short program at Nationals in person, though it was great, he did it better the year before.
Right.
It just physically, the speed, the attack, everything like that. So, and I probably wouldn't have voted to send him to the Olympics.
I wouldn't have either, and I know that was such an unpopular sentiment when we.
But that has nothing to do with not liking Jason.
Of course not.
Based on the criteria, the fact that Vincent Joe won the spot at Nebelhorn, even though he bombed Worlds, won Skate America, and could do such a strong short program, when Nathan was likely, the way that it was setting up with the team event, to me, it was kind of a no-brainer. Even though based on the criteria, based on what you could do, having options, depending on who's to have multiple quads, they were going to get a medal either way. To me, it just seemed like kind of looking at the criteria, what should be done. And that was my opinion, and has nothing to do with not liking Jason. So I actually,
it's not an emotional decision, it should be a logistic one.
Of the four skaters, Ilya, Nathan, Vincent, Jason, I prefer Jason skating the best.
Of course.
All of them.
Yes.
Wait, but that gets lost in this, right? You like this person, you like that. No. I think Jason is the best skater. I like watching him the best. I didn't think he was at his physical best last year. So.
Yeah. And again, now affording all this time to not feel rushed, he can sort of do this like slowly and make sure that the body remains healthy and all of that sort of stuff. Same thing we were talking about walkabout. When you're not trying to speed up the recovery before it's really time, I think you'll get a better result. But it's hard in an Olympic season to sort of take that time.
I think that because he looks healthy, the Impossible Dream looks stronger than the rehash of Schindler's List. And the Schindler's List was beautiful. But I just think that he has that, how Michelle came out in 2002, in the fall, because when we saw her, the Olympic season, her stroking was not as powerful. And I believe she was still dealing with a back injury. She had a bad fall at Nationals in practice in 2001. She had some sort of a back issue. She just did not look as physically strong and agile. Go back, look at 2002 Nationals, look at 2003 Nationals. She was skating fewer hours in 2003 and working out with a trainer, sometimes longer than she was actually spending out on the ice. And physically, it just enhanced what she was doing on the ice. She also has years and years and years of practice. I see a similar thing with Jason in terms of just what he was able to do at the Japan Open compared to his physical ability a year ago. Now, resting, healing, being rejuvenated mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, no Olympic pressure. He looks rejuvenated. I think he can get a great result this year.
Well, and it was an indicator because the program was so competitive in the way it was constructed. It wasn't a fun show program like maybe some others might do at the Japan Open. It was a very competitive IJS program, and I think that moment, if he can do that flip at the end or whatever he was going to do at the end, it could be a really exciting moment. Yeah,
I'm nervous that that's going to be like the Carolina Costner triple Siao at the end at Worlds.
I agree. Yeah,
but
worth the risk, I think.
It's worth, especially you're coming back. You have nothing to prove. It's like a bonus round love fest. Why not? Oh, it's great for the cricket club gets to rebuild because they've been empty all summer, but now they have June back. They have Rika training with them. they have Jason and they have Boyang Jin, who was there this week. Now, all of a sudden, that's a hot training center again. And the
I didn't
success
realize
of the cricket club has really been, they're like a managing finishing school, right? They have not shown that they can raise a skater from zero to this level, but they are very good when a skater of a level like Kamuna, Yuzuru, Jason, they come and Javi, like,
right.
They work on tweaking them, they work on the packaging, they work on some fundamentals, right? And they can kind of, that's their real skill set, I think.
Agreed. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, I don't think we've seen them. If you look like Gogolev, like, it's interesting with all the proximity to the choreographers in the world, what do we, for some reason, it just didn't raise that, right? And they have David Wilson right there, but for whatever reason, like Grayson, who's coming up, he doesn't seem to have that show quality where if you have David Wilson like right there, you would think like it would be more cohesive, but it doesn't seem to work like that, right? So for whatever human nature, whatever reason. So I'm excited to see what Jason can do. I think this is fantastic for USFS because let's say Ilya is top 3. The US would need someone to get 10th to retain 3 spots. And this is all about development and the future because the US doesn't really need 3 spots right now. The men aren't that good. But I think we have seen is that when you lose 3 spots, because the depth isn't there, it can take a really long time to get it back. How about how the US women couldn't get out of that hole for the longest time? So
Right. Well, and again, if he can help solidify 3 spots to make sure more of the younger up and coming skaters can go to Worlds the next year, it's serving a purpose. But
we also see that depth just makes everyone work that little bit harder. And it's obviously you just want someone to work hard on their own because they want to achieve it.
Right.
But I think you see with depth, when there's just like enough people in the mix, people strive a little harder.
Yeah.
And they pull that out. And the US men who are in development, Naumov, even Camden, right? What are we going to see from Camden? That's kind of an open-ended.
It's a question mark, yeah.
He's supposed to actually, I think, visit Raphael maybe before nationals or to be in that environment. But I think we're seeing that there are people who have ingredients to be great, but they haven't put it out consistently. And the men's event is the one field I don't notice the absence of Russia in this field.
No, and of course, even as we watched the Russian men this weekend, you know, they'd kind of be in the mix, but it's not like they would dominate like they might have in other disciplines. I
actually don't even notice a drop-off significantly in the men's event in terms of the quality of skating without Yuzu or Nathan. There's a fewer men that are doing like quad flip and quad lats in combination, and that is evident. Ilya does do a quad axel, which is incredible. But I think the overall depth of the men's event and the quality and the actual level of skating between Shoma or even Adam this week is strong enough that I don't feel like we're missing something as a viewer.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a giant hole in the talent like there may be in other disciplines. Yeah.
What did you think of Adam this week?
Well, you know, I've always liked Adam because he's so interesting. I loved the Star Wars program. I really liked that step work sequence. I find him interesting and committed. So it was a fascinating choice that they decided to go sort of more drama emotion with this. But you see, even though this is some Benoit story and he's crying in the rain and redemption this and all that, I'm not necessarily following that as in the free as much as I am in the short. But whatever this like dot tapping thing is, even though I don't necessarily understand what it's exactly supposed to represent, it looks cool and it is delivered with such interesting sort of body movement that I'm just into it. I think he's like a great like committed skater. And when they were even describing the backstory, I kind of rolled my eyes before the short program began. But then I thought, well, if that backstory helped create the commitment to this short program in particular, I was like, well, then I'll eat my words because I was thoroughly entertained. And if you're going to mime, you might as well do it the way Adam did because it's so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And with that gorgeous like quad Siao and the complicated steps, he has interesting spin variations. He's really passionate. there were some of the men here where I found myself wandering to my phone while they were skating. And with Adam, I put the phone down and just was completely engrossed in the performance. And just nice to see him pull out a win here. This is a big deal.
Yeah, I think he does the Benoit program for men as well as that style can be done. And
I think so too. And it works.
It works. I think that there's better skating than that, but I think Adam is making himself a contender. There's a vacuum, obviously, where there are stars like Adam who have the opportunity, and he's having a fantastic season.
Yeah, I do kind of miss some of that like edgy fun part of this, given that it's, you know, carried through to the free skate. And again, for the free skate, it went on just a little bit too long to carry that theme at times, but the step sequences in particular, just fantastic, fantastic.
Do you think though that he's in a different place this year? Like last year, he could be that shtickier skater or do that more fun things, and now he's actually more of a legit contender. So there's
I think it's certainly last year was the most I noticed him. So it sort of like paved the way to open this door and now really be viewed as a top contender. And there were some very talented guys here, but none really that could put it all together the same way. I don't know. I think he's more of a factor than I realized he was going to be. I knew he was going to climb up this year, but I was like, you're going to climb up pretty high, I think.
I wonder if he sees himself differently because how we view him is different too. I just noticed in the comments about, I'm not just saying me and you, but I see, you know, some of our big supporters, they will message us about him. They will post about him that we're seeing about Adam. And the conversation about him is changing, right? And it's interesting that he works, you know, the way he does being from France. Like I was thinking about Florent Amodio. He was someone who, remember in 2011, he had that mishmash of different music, right? And at Worlds, they used the lyrics before it was really allowed, which could incur a deduction. But like no one cared. But at the same time, he wasn't ever considered to be going for the world title, even though he won a lot of medals that season. So it was okay, but he was still that like fifth place fun skater. Adam might achieve more than that, right? Especially
yeah, he could have easily been just a fun 5 to 10, you know, sort of guy this season, but they stepped it up and make you look at him more seriously, I guess, with this material also. Yeah, I'm interested where this goes. And the only thing I would say is sometimes I wish on the landings that there was a bit more ride out. Some of them seem to land at a bit of a standstill, some of them, but I mean, especially with the French jump technique that we've seen in the past, which has been a little haphazard at times, he seems to be really honing in on a technique that's working for him. So, yeah.
I understand what you're saying about looking at your phone, because I noticed with two men in this field, Sota Yamamoto and Si-hyeong Lee, I thought both have so many great qualities to their skating. Technically, they have good technique, they have good skating skills. They're both lack projection and performance, which isn't required in this judging system.
Right.
But as viewers, we zone out. And I actually was starting to calculate in my head, being like, could they be consistent enough to beat skaters that we prefer watching more, just because they're consistent enough that judges will over award them components, right? Because I would think that Junhwa Cha is a stronger overall skater than Si-hyeong Lee. Right. But he is so consistent.
Right.
And we've seen Junhwa Cha miss that triple axel in the second half, to where it's a question for me, right? Yeah. And then with Sota, he's almost styled a little bit like Yuzuru Hanyu, like the purple costume that's Yuzu costume that we saw when he did the Plushenko program. But he lacks the command. Even though neither is great with icon, like Yuzu knows how to command his upper body and the head and and like Sota misses all of those nuances. He doesn't have the power in his performance.
You can't take your eyes off of Hanyu, and Sota was achieving the jumps, especially in the short program, but you would almost see him go blank before the jump. But then the argument being like, did that hold him back? If that's what he needs to do to get the jump, he still got the points over people, you know what I mean, that were doing far more transitional content and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, I think, and Sota jumps very beautifully when it's all working for him, and it's very lovely to look at. But again, it's a total disengagement before the takeoff. And again, that's where even in a short program, I find my focus wandering away. So obviously this is a huge talent, and nice to see him back after the injury and all these sorts of things. But I sort of remember this as a junior also.
Yes.
That it's
he has the ingredients, except for the performance aspect, he has all the ingredients. He does that, the Ina Bauer to the spread eagle so well. Like you can see that he has building blocks,
right?
But needs to really focus on the performance if he is to become a true leading man.
Yeah, but I wonder if their strategy is just do it clean and you may surpass some of those in the meantime.
I think he will, because I was looking at him versus Kazuki Tomono. Now, I prefer Kazuki. I think Kazuki has a lot of potential, but Kazuki has had a lot of potential for a lot of years now. We're going back to 2018 when we first.
The momentum is tricky for him because it's kind of, he's always been around and sort of made splashes and then sits back and then reemerges as a presence. Yeah.
I would actually really consider, if I were Kazuki's coaches, going back to the La La Land program. Not because just we loved it, the whole thing. I think the Deflator Mouse is a great idea for him. I wonder if it's a hair too frantic that he gets like, I don't know. I'm just curious to see what would happen if you play.
Well, because even in that it can rush, I think, probably the rhythm. And if he's a performer where like the nervous system gets a little quick, I think it could be a perfect storm. That's what I felt about Keegan's, I think it was a short program last year, maybe it was the long. Just that internal pulse was running so fast. And then for the music to match it, it was almost a perfect storm of frenzy. And then the Flater, what I like is when he does the step sequence at the end, because that's what the build on the step sequence, But there's nice levity and joy in it. Fledermaus is like a sticky comedy. It's supposed to be such a farce. And I know that they were talking about creating it as sort of like a lighthearted, funny moment. But it didn't kind of read to me that it was so fun and light and silly until the step sequence. Yeah. So I wish they had capitalized on that a little bit more. So seeing Kazuki at Nebelhorn and then here, he keeps having a problem with his landings, right? And I wonder if he's just not, is he just like not confident, as confident as he could be? It looks like he probably lands them in practice and then in competition is not checking and on the landing, what he keeps doing a double three out of them. And I'm just curious if the music gets in his head a little bit. Both the short and the free are up tempo. Last year, La La Land was a hair slower and the short was more classical. It was like imitation Hanyu short program, right? It just seemed to work for him. This year, he's doing 2 up-tempo programs, and I just wonder if they're too. Well, and again, you can settle your body and like slow that internal tempo in practice. But then when you have the music and your pumped up adrenaline from being in front of a crowd and being in a competition, again, I think everything is just going to go faster. Because you used to talk about under competition lights, you will find some skaters either slow it down a little bit or they speed it up a little bit. And he seems a speeder upper. And I'm a speeder upper. Those twizzle outs. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I'm an anxious speeder upper, right? Like and that's just what I have to know about myself, right? With him, I find that also last year he was the outsider making the comeback, right? To really start to solidify himself, and everyone was behind him. He had the great programs, he could really shine. It's also different that without Yuzu, there's another spot open for the Japanese men, yet they're incredibly deep. You know, they lost Yuzu, but they have so many men who are really developing from juniors.
that it can also happen for him this year, and that's scary.
Yeah.
Where maybe last year he wanted it and it was fun, but maybe he never believed in his heart that it would happen.
Yeah.
Really thinking it was going to happen. And then now when you're dealing with that, because the sport is so mental, you have to deal with a shift in terms of, and maybe it's too much to do that plus the fast programs and just go back to the basics, right?
Yeah.
This is complete projection, just wondering, but you have to think like the men in Japan, if he makes any mistakes, right? So he's kind of going for that third spot. And actually that, because of his performances thus far, if I'm a judge at Japanese nationals, or if I'm voting, right? I'm having this in the back of my mind about who I think is in the top for the Japanese men to go to Worlds. And I'm thinking that Shoma, obviously, going. Kaumura, with his level of jumps, seems to have that spot solidifying, right? But then you look at Yuma, who's injured. If he's back, I think that's your top three.
Right.
Unless it becomes, is Yuma really healthy enough? Or is Kao really developed enough? Kazuki will have to show more consistency and command than he has done thus far. But you also have Sota Yamamoto, who's extremely strong technically, and he's someone who could creep in. So, yeah. I just like, if you're using a selection committee, I'm looking at Kazuki, I'm like, he's kind of blowing this.
Yeah, even though he's medaling and you know what I mean, and even all, but again, it's almost just it's that thing that happens with Japanese nationals, where each competition beforehand is just another version of their nationals. Yeah, it's tricky.
Yes.
Dave, I'm so sorry. Can we pause for just a second?
We just had to take a momentary bio break, as they say in the corporate world.
Let's call it that. That sounds very chic.
Yes. So what about the other events here? How about the women's event? This is another field where you do notice at least the lack of the Russian women, but this is also, it's the field where I think there are stars emerging, right?
Yeah, okay, so first I want to ask you about this, because I know that this comes up sometimes at competitions where people are not doing well. And I never know if it's like an eye roll, get over yourself moment, or if there's really something to think about here, is a lot of the skaters were complaining about the ice. And we saw like the Canadians, like she really got ripped up when she sort of like got too close to it because it was so hard and everything. But really, because Loena still ended up delivering what she needed to deliver, but a lot of women faltering here that I did not anticipate to falter in these ways. Had you heard anything about the ice? Do you think there's something to the quality of ice at a competition where people seem to keep going down?
Ice is a real thing. That is a real thing. It can also be, but everything is mental, right? So,
and it's an even playing field. Everyone is on that ice.
Yes, but it is a real thing.
Okay, right? And they did say that this is primarily a music venue, so I don't know, maybe it is not the quality of ice that they are used to.
It is a real thing, and it's typically an even playing field, unless like the ice starts melting, you know, but yeah, remember there was a competition where there were cones on the ice at one point or something?
Right, that's right. And I always remember, where was Birmingham Worlds? Was that like 96 or something?
95.
95. They were talking about like the peanut butter ice, like they kept getting stuck in certain corners, like,
No, but there are some people, I remember Scott Hamilton in his book said that Paul Wiley, that if everyone hated the ice, Paul Wiley would always be the person that did really well or seemed to do on that ice. But you also wonder, Paul Wiley was kind of like a Ashley Wagner type, or where they would like do a bad short and then a great free, right? How many times did we see him miss a short program, do a great artistic skate for whatever reason?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that's also could that also be a mental thing, right? Like most people aren't like, oh, I love skating on bad ice. It's just really, it's my favorite thing in the world. I just really love really shitty ice, you know, like shoot up, hockey team, go through it. Here's the thing. I practice sometimes at ice that is bad, right? And it can get in your head and it can throw you off a bit. But is it really, sometimes it's like, is it the ice that's throwing me, or am I getting in my head more because the ice is bad and then I'm starting to kind of spiral? Because that happens too.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the operatic equivalent are the acoustics. Because like sometimes you have really live acoustics and sometimes they're really dead. But ideally, if you just trust and do the same thing, you'll be fine. But I find most people start to alter or think about it too much. And then it's suddenly this big mental presence that's not normally there. But I was surprised by
sometimes just like if even during exercises on bad ice, I notice with myself, like I'll pitch forward just a little bit more and then I catch a toe pick. Right. Because I'm like anxious, like not fully relaxing my knees, getting into things. So those kind of mistakes, it can be how you also adjust to that situation. So
Okay. I mean, it was interesting to see Loena here, and because I love that Yelim short program, although she didn't deliver it necessarily with the same gravitas she has in the past here. But again, I don't know, I'm on such like a tirade for the Korean women because I was like, I thought she was grossly undermarked again. Not that she should have beaten Loena necessarily, but I thought it would have been much closer. What Loena has is she sort of takes up space on the ice. Like she has like an orb around her or something. And it just, everything is a little bit bigger and showier and all this sort of stuff. And she projects so well. But Yelim was really, in my opinion, not getting credit. I don't know.
The performance with Loena is so good that I find that it's better, it's stronger than the sum of its parts. And what I mean about that is Loena is, she's a bit of a Hughes sister. And what I mean by that is she performs so well with such confidence and belief in herself that she's really stepping into this role of a leading lady.
Right.
Her belief in performance is stronger than some of the details of her technique. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because even in the combo, for instance, Yelim in the short program does, like, to me, the best combo of the event, no question. And
you can tell from the Lutz that Luna's was going to be under rotated on the toe.
Yeah.
The way that
she squeaked out the triple instead of a double, which would have been an easy choice to have made there. Yeah.
You knew that was not going to be around based on how the landing of the first jump went.
Right.
But her overall performance and her overall wow makes up for little deficiencies for me.
Because the program lacks details, but again, you're still being entertained. And again, it still holds my focus.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think she's a perfect bronze medalist, maybe a perfect surprising silver medalist for Worlds or a Grand Prix final. That's kind of where I slot her in. In my mind, I think Kauri is inherently stronger, although not showing great triples yet at this point of the season. Yeah. Rinka, obviously super strong right now. Yelim, though, to me, didn't have her best outing here, but she's in another growth stage where she is really in a new conversation this year as a medal contender, because let's face it, outside of Kauri, no one was really a medal contender a year ago. It was all Russia all the time, right? So it's a different shift for everyone. I think Yelim has the technical goods to get there. I think she could work on performance. And then, a couple of her landings this week got a little squirrely to where, she can improve that. I think her
free, especially, I thought the short was really strong again. Yeah. And again, the triple flip was fabulous. I thought she had a better double axel than Loena. I thought her combo was better, but to see them back to back live would be very interesting to me, because again, when I'm watching through the camera lens and I'm watching all those fabulous arms, on the back of the step sequence and all this sort of stuff, maybe it doesn't project as big in the arena. And maybe that's what's happening here. So
I was talking to Sandra when I was picking my music this year, and she goes, I think this year you should let the technique be the artistry. Meaning, like, not dying on the ice this year, not over the top, like emotional dramatics. Like, let the technique be let it be subtle and let it be the artistry of it.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel that Yelim is kind of like that, where the technique is the artistry, whereas Luna's the performance, and she's giving you the costume and the razzle dazzle and the whole thing and the right. And the Yelim is more subtle. She needs to hit a really great free program, and that technique will shine.
Yeah.
Like, let it be the artistry, because she can do it, and they can add little flourishes and things here and there. But her technique is so much stronger than Luna's, in my opinion, that it could really
be the star. Of the program.
She has to be clean. She has to have great landings, and that's what she was missing here for me, is just like little mistakes here and there.
I even remember you brought up a really interesting point when you went to Worlds in Boston and saw Megan and Eric, because you were like, when they were hitting all of their elements just right in practice or something like that, and the athleticism was so profound, you were like, in and of itself, it became artistic.
Yes.
Because of the prowess they had there.
They had a lot of emotion in person in 2016 to that Adele music.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were at the peak of their careers and their ability, and it totally was the strongest.
Arguably less artistic than maybe some others, it carried them through. And I would like to see the same thing for Yelim, because I'm rooting for her. But of course, that was a rough free skate for her, and surprisingly so. But she even seemed surprised is that the judges were still sort of behind her.
Yeah, I think for Hyein, Lee, for Rion here, to me, like it got too messy, where I didn't really believe in anyone. And Audrey Shin has that issue with the under rotation sometimes, because Audrey can also be beautiful, but Audrey, to me, is like fighting between being 5th or 6th at nationals and being 3rd at nationals, right? Where she actually needs a little bit more of what Luna has in that confidence and that projection, to where she can make up for some of those under rotations.
Again, it became a bit more general, her artistry, even in the tango, but it was just a little bit like, here's a position I was told to make. I was told to move my fingers this way, all this sort of stuff, where I don't feel necessarily the heart behind it. And as a fan, that's what I want.
Yeah, she's lovely, right? Lovely. But she lacks that inherent confidence of like, I am gonna be. And Jenny talked about this, that when she shifted and when she did the Chicago program, that she saw herself as number 3. With Audrey, it's like she could be 3, she could be 5.
Right. And almost leaving it to chance on the day or something, instead of almost.
Why is it always that the 3rd Grand Prix has the weakest event, right? Like it usually comes out of the gate with number 1, number 2. Everyone wants to go to NHK and have that experience and the whole deal. But like the 3rd week is when we all start to like get into the grind. It was always the China week. It was always the Germany week. It's always just been like, where you just kind of, and it
was nice that the crowd was so enthusiastic. That sort of helped the energy, because we know when there's a Grand Prix where the crowd is less present, it can also lead to that sort of feeling. Also, I was surprised they had a lot of cheerleaders. They had cheerleaders present. Like
we love a cheerleader. I love a sequin. I love a pom-pom. I love theatrics. I'm gay, Jonathan. I love pageantry. Okay.
Amazing.
So you just love a parade, an Easter parade.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you ready for your Christmas ornaments? Like, this is a very intense time for you, right?
I know. I have to decide when to like bring them up.
But when do you start planning? Do you get new ones and plan in advance?
Yeah, well, I try to take, because I do this ornament countdown with the puns, but sometimes I cycled through enough that like some that haven't been seen in 5 years, I will like photograph again. But yeah, right around just the weekend before Thanksgiving, I start shopping the stores in New York and start taking the photos. But I'm in New York for most of December this year, minus like only 1 week, where in the past I've often left. So then I used to have to take all of the photos ahead of time, like a crazy person.
I always have an existential struggle. And I mean, you know this, that in past skating years, it gets really crazy between work in December is, review season, and end of the year, the beginning of December, you're always pushing. That's also when we have like the Grand Prix final and the end of this. Also getting ready in my own skating to perform in shows, like last year, like for the first time, doing a new program, getting that together. I was getting my axle, a lot of stuff going on, personally.
Yeah.
And then it was like, when do you get the Charlie Brown Christmas tree? Do I get it now? Is it going to die? But then if you wait too long, it's like, why am I even putting it up? Is it
right now? Is it even worth that added stress?
Yeah.
So that's why I tend to.
And there is nothing worse for me than like not having it up and feeling like I'm bah humbug. Like
exactly. Just throwing one up on YouTube on the TV or something.
Yes, I'm like, well, I should take that minute and put it in. So this year I will make sure I get it by, I don't know.
Okay.
December 14th.
Terrific.
December 11th. If it dies, it dies. You know what? It lived a great life. Okay.
But that's why I do artificial, because I often have to put them up at goofy times and I want them pre-lit.
Listen, my mother with all of her eccentricities.
Yeah.
We always had the artificial tree. So then one year, all of a sudden she was like, let's get a real tree this year. I'm like, who are you? Like, what? We always had the artificial.
Water it, all the needles, like, yeah.
We had the real tree, but the smell is so freaking good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I don't want to go back to artificial.
Right.
What am I, from Long Island with like an artificial tree? No.
A nice white one, with pink lights.
Come on. Okay. Not doing it. Not doing it. Getting a real one. All right. I want the smell. I want it to be so sappy that I'm scrubbing the floor, getting that off. Okay. Amazing. Stop.
Worth it. Hashtag worth it. Okay.
Your artificial tree, please.
I know. It's terrible. Terrible.
I want those needles going everywhere. Okay. I want them on my clothes. I want them on the floor. Yes. Okay.
But also because I have literally hundreds and hundreds of ornaments on them that are quite heavy and extravagant. Like the artificial's a little like more secure. Mm-hmm. So that's why I and I have two.
That's like eating food for the condiments. It's like when you really want ketchup, so you find a food that's a vehicle for it. You have a treat that's a vehicle for ornament.
I do that too. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I'm craving Thousand Island. Let's get a Reuben. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Exactly. Well, I'm craving some Deanna Stellato, but this was not her best outing this week.
And yet, Grand Prix winner.
Grand Prix champion,
excuse me. Yeah.
Champion of France, champion of the junior Grand Prix final. Champion of sliding on your stomach on the throw triple loop. Deanna she's very exciting, Jonathan. I like, she goes all out.
The US judge put her second. Just saying.
Skatingscores.com, who was it?
Oh, do they? Because they say the name separately?
Oh, yeah. It'll say who the judge was. Wait, I'm pulling it up.
I was because to me, it was such like a landslide victory for them.
I'm pulling this up because he will message me if I don't do it. Like we will get a message. And
in the short program, US had them second. Canada and Germany and Georgia had
Doug Williams. Doug Williams is the judge. He's West Coast. Was friends with Adam Rapon. Doug Williams. Doug Williams monitored Caroline Zhang the year that she went to Skate America and skated through the jumping passes. Yes.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
You were there. You were there.
That was a tough one to see. Yeah. I don't know how someone could have monitored that.
Okay.
Also, then even in the free skate, the US and Georgia had them second to the Germans, which was silly. That's silly to me.
That's Doug Williams. Well, listen, they didn't help Deanna. They didn't push it over the line to get Deanna a partner. But like, she's like a cockroach, or you can't get rid of her, right? Like she's still, I understand that they didn't think that she would keep getting better with age and that she would be, like, I understand logically why this happened, but it has to be a thorn in their side.
Right.
Danny they have a bye all the way through to nationals with his new partner. They've never competed before. They're supposed to get international. Danny has a partner who's like 16. He's 31. It's very Shelby Lyons and Brian Wells.
A fish called
Mom. They look great. Jonathan, the U.S. pairs, Brian and Jessica split, Audrey and Misha split.
Right.
I mean, there's no one. Okay.
Right.
Like,
I mean, and this was a tough, in talking about where you notice the lack of depth. I mean, now the Georgians, this was, but in any, hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. But this is where you notice the lack of Russian pairs also, because the content here was actually rather simplistic, I found. But the Georgians could have taken this, but she was really injured, and to watch her do this skating, it was really upsetting to watch. It almost struck me, and now this is probably my own stuff, it struck me as abusive to even make her be doing that when her landing leg was in so much pain, and she was clear. I mean, he was full-blown like yanking her around on some crossovers because she could barely keep up. She was so in pain. And then sure enough, who shows up at the boards? Inexplicably, I don't know how this is possible, but there is Dudikov, who is he not a member of the Russian Federation?
Well, he's technically also a member of the Georgian Federation as a coach, because you could be members of multiple, right? And technically, the athletes are the ones who are banned. Everyone always says, can't you just ban the coaches for this year? How are you going to ban them? Are you going to ban them for coaching in their home rink? They're never going to do that, right? Russia's never going to say, right, you're banned. So people don't think that through, what that means. It's a great statement, but this is like one of those legal technicalities, right?
Yeah. Because I just
a member of the Georgian
Federation was not allowed, in the same way they're not sending judges.
And are these skaters Georgian or are they Russian? How about Morris Kvitishvili? You know, if you're going to ban the Russian athletes, born in Russia, makes money in the Navka show, trains in Sambo 70, but has Georgian lineage and is therefore competing for Georgia. Well, really, if you're taking money from Navka, which is Dmitry Peskov Putin money, directly to the war, this is what Viktor Petrenko is in trouble for, right? That he did this, but you're still competing, that's even bigger, okay? Yeah. Who is in the photo with Viktor Petrenko and Kamila Valieva? Morisi Kvitishvili is in that photo that went out on the internet. Yeah. The three of them, and he's been competing because he's Georgian. But he is not also a part of the Russian Federation. He is only a part of the Georgian Federation. So I understood it as people involved with the Russian Federation, judges, referees, officials, coaches, skaters were not to be around. But so this seems like such weird legalese that now. Well, it's almost like they have to have a list and be like, you're banned, you're banned, you're banned. And then you get into like, how Russian are you? Is that like, I don't want to like make some improper jokes, but like, how Russian are you? Right? Like, yeah. What is again, to me, involvement with the Federation would have clearly answered that you are a part of that, that system, where Morisi could get out of that in legal terms by saying, I am not in the Russian Federation of Skating, I am in the Georgian one. But he's making Russian money and training in a Russian state-funded rink. He's making money from the Navka show, probably to pay a Terry. She probably gets a cut of that, right? That probably goes back to Sambo. That's government money from Russia. They just got a grant to go to Lugansk in Ukraine to perform in the spring. Think of how offensive that is to everyone in Ukraine. And my immediate thought was, oh my God, is Victor going to be in that show? Are you going to then like be in the Navka? I mean, like, I hope for his sake, like he sits that one out. Yeah. Or is Navka doing that on purpose with Peskov to be like, we're going to go to Lugansk with the Ukrainian Olympic champion who's performing in our show? Because that seems like a gigantic, like, middle finger. Yeah. That's how I read that, you know. And is that why is that why they put him in the show to begin with? Is he really getting that many people, or did they know that that would be like an FU to Ukraine? Yeah. Have him be in that show and have that leak. Yeah. Right? Like, think of the optics of that. Yeah. So I mean, what it was a reminder of to me was a system that would put someone very injured and who is struggling and in pain on the ice for a Grand Prix in France that in the big scheme of things does not matter.
I was like, why are you not resting this girl? They could be world medalists, but now you're going to drive her into the ground. It was painful to watch her suffer through these two programs.
And they also train in Russia, by the way. Let's just cut. Why are they there? Okay, like this is another situation. Yeah.
It was a tough watch. It was a tough watch.
Also Novka's Ukrainian too. I just want, sorry, it's a whole lot of nuances here and people will explode in the comments, but there's a lot of things. But Dudikov, technically, yes, he's there as a member of that federation. Do I think it's right? No. Do I think it's what's happening? Yes.
Yeah. But even the bigger question was, why did she do it? It was so upsetting for me.
Need the money? Do they want to keep the Grand Prix final hopes alive? Hoping that
you know what I mean? And to me now, you've like completely like.
Why did Darya Usacheva go to Japan last year?
Exactly. It's that same kind of stuff, and then it always boils back to the same people. It always comes back to the same people.
How about how they told us in the Russian press a week ago that Darya was withdrawing from the competition this week because she hasn't recovered from the injury from last year, but she should be ready in next week's time. And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You're going to be ready in 4 days? Like,
well, even when that happened in Japan last year, that they immediately went to like, yeah, she really entered that jump wrong. And like immediately there was that huge PR press to put it on, she jumped stupid, and that's why that happened.
Gaslighting.
Yeah. And it was immediate. Even before you could say, hope she's okay, it came out like, it's her fault.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Deanna and Gleb are supposed to compete soon. But you know, the reason why they can't leave the US to go to test skates is because he had applied for a green card, obviously.
Right.
So it's like a race against time, whether or not he can leave. And are they gonna, what are they gonna have COVID this week? Are they gonna, what's the excuse gonna be if they can't go? If they can go, it's like the fastest.
They're supposed to compete in the Russian Grand Prix series.
Oh yes. Oh yes. And they moved them to the end. So to give them more time with the paperwork, because there's a chance they could make it happen. Oh, and if they are there, anyone who has ever had like a 2-week, any fans in the comments that have had like a 2-year-long process with a marriage will freak out. Are these some sort of favors? Because then that's super inappropriate comparing what their connections are. So I'm waiting. As the blade turns, Jonathan, as the blade turns. Okay. What kind, is Russia ready to discuss it honestly? Are they just going to throw some more bullshit on the fire?
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be great. Okay.
Yeah.
We have been good. We deserve this.
Yeah. We're ready for some scandal.
We're ready for like the whole mix of it. Anyway, I hope Deanna and Max add either a side-by-side double axel or triple Siao in at the next competition, and that she is healthy and landing those throws because they have such great quality. Not again, they're another one who they were a challenger, probably knew they weren't going to beat Alexa. They were kind of expected to win here. That's also a shift.
And boom, she's in the final.
The girl is in the final. And they get to be back in like in the mix, but not the sole favorites. So
nice place to be. Yeah.
Place to be.
Yeah. Again, her lift positions are so beautiful. I love their death spiral moments. I find them very interesting. Yeah. Obviously the throw triple loop wasn't working in either program this week, but
the flip was crooked, and it was a little crooked at Skate America too. So they need to know how to
save it. That's what's so fascinating.
She is gritty. I mean, she's not for the faint of heart, right? And they're taking from Jose Picard, who's in that Julianne Seguin article. I mean, I think Deanna can handle her. I also think that article is alarming, and you see
you know, she write the article for what was it through?
It's about her. It's up. Julianne has a book, but it's only out in French, so I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I would love to read it. So
and
obviously it's her concussion situation is bad. I mean, it's bad where you could blame the coach. You start to look at how does someone have that many concussions in a short amount of time, and why were they cleared to go on the ice? And then, I mean, there's a lot of people at fault in that kind of a situation. That's he's impacted, you know, for life, like similarly with Joshua Ferris, like it's really significant. So it was less about Charlie in this situation and more about Jose in
Okay.
that article.
Well, on the outside, you knew something was happening, but you didn't know who or what or why or how and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. But of course, everyone in the chat, when people are watching Deanna with Jose and that article just came out, you're like, oh dear, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, totally different. What's interesting about this sport is they're talking about children, almost, young people relationship with adults, as opposed to Deanna entering as an adult, which I think must change that dynamic entirely.
Yeah. There are so many factors there that I don't think we want to get into it. There's some skating culture and that.
Yeah.
And just because someone is not abusive to you doesn't mean they haven't been abusive to someone else.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So, yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah. So,
but it was thrilling. It's a thrilling story to be following. The Deanna rise.
Yeah, and I think this is their fourth competition. They had a little bit of a dip, but I think you'll see them back up for the final, the nationals. Yeah. Now things get a little bit more spread out. So I wasn't surprised that they had a little, because their two Grand Prix are kind of close together, and then they get to go back out.
And they have been going. Yeah.
Look, this is a good moment for them. They got a win when they didn't even skate their best, and they can build on that and move forward. So, and it wasn't a disaster. They did their job in a weaker field.
That thing you say, it's that reputation judging is now starting to roll in their favor.
That's when you made it. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happens when it's your fourth competition and you've been good all season. And the rest of the field here
was not.
We've spent time discussing very few pairs this season for a reason, right?
Yeah. Right.
So, what do you think of the dance event here? It was not my favorite. It was just.
Well, okay. Do you think, I was intrigued by the proximity of scores with the Canadians and the Italians. Inherently, yes, they're hot, the Canadians, and my goodness, she looks like a fitness model. She looks like she could beat Michelle Obama in an arm wrestling match, and she's got these abs for days, and they have this height and this big presence, which is in stark contrast to the Italians. But some of the detail work isn't necessarily there. Whereas when I look at the Italians, I see all this finite detail work, but maybe the overall arc of entertainment isn't as big. But their scores were really close, and some of them had the Canadians ahead. And I wondered if you're Barbara, if this was not your favorite weekend, because they could be gunning for a world title. And it seemed clear that the judges were like, no, you're closer to these Canadians than the other Canadians you're seemingly chasing. Well,
Montreal has 14 countries.
Just saying. Yeah. And, it's almost, you don't want to say it's an unfair advantage, but just the natural nature of the Canadians is just appealing to watch because of their height and things like that. And we had talked about Barbara's big personality before, and I find that Fabbri is such a gorgeous skater. She's basically taller than him. So now she's a female coach with this huge personality, and she has a partner that's very excellent, but smaller than she is. And I just can't help but thinking much of her life is shrinking in that rink, shrinking down to be smaller than him, even in stature, or making room for Barbara's energy, or whatever it is. So he does have X factor. And when I'm looking closely at her, I was like, you're doing really nice things. Why doesn't it add up? And I think there's just a lack of owning to the presence and sharpness and bigness to her moves. Probably because I think subconsciously she feels like she can't take up so much space or something. I don't know. Because what would you do if you had this team that was very technically proficient, but they kind of need that X factor? Because when I was looking, it's not that she's deadpan. It's not that they're not doing gestures. She does finish them. But I was like, but yet I can't figure out where that missing piece is.
I would be looking to the juniors, who I was going to bring up by this point.
Got it.
Because let's be real about the situation in ice dance this season. It seems like we have 3 leading teams: Chalk and Bates, Gillis and Poirier, and Fabbri.
Yeah.
No one has everything.
Right.
Which means that you start to come down to a lack of mistakes, packaging programs, because the Italians have never been an engaging team.
But like you're talking about with Sota, because they can get certain levels and certain grades of execution on things, they could wiggle past a couple more entertaining teams.
Yeah, so they've been very consistent for a very long time, and they've earned that position in the top of the ice dance field.
Yeah.
I don't think they're the favorite.
Or your European title. Yeah.
You have Piper and Paul. She has very weak posture for an ice dancer of this level, and her legs inherently lack extension. That's not going to change. Okay. It hasn't changed, and it's not going to at this point. But they can have great programs and material and skate well. The Evita program this year, quite effective. And
they do have two interesting vehicles for them this season, I think. Yeah.
You have Chalk and Bates, who have great lifts. They've skated with each other for a long time. He is the stronger of the skaters, although he's been kind of injured and longer in the tooth and less consistent than you would need them to be. And for a team that does well with packaging, their programs are a flop this season.
Yeah, yeah.
I would think that it means that Gillis and Poirier have an edge.
Yeah.
But they don't come from a school that has as many judges as Montreal. So now we sit back and we watch.
And let it play out. Yeah.
And I would emotionally detach yourself from whatever situation happens. And I would think that all of these teams should retire by mid-quad. And you start to look at who's moving up. And I would look at how much can the British team improve? How much can the American teams improve who are underneath? What of Hawaii and Baker? And what of...
I mean, what do you think about the Canadians? Like, do you think they're in it for this whole next stretch?
Well, to me, watching the Olympic Channel documentary where they focused on his knee injury so much makes me think probably not, but I don't know. But I also then don't know if they have the physical capabilities to come back. Then I start to wonder, are Papadakis and Cizeron going to come back? They seemed like they were so overskating, but they're in.
But maybe they just needed that big break again. Yeah.
I think they're in holiday on ice when they are Papadakis and Cizeron, right? Yeah. Like, no shade for anyone that makes a living, but like, this is a team that is a world-class,
iconic. Yeah.
Without the vehicle to promote them, which is a problem with figure skating right now. I start to look at, Zach Donahue's posting about going to CrossFit, and I'm thinking, like, you could have won the Worlds. Like,
he really could have. Yeah.
Like, hello, how many times do they want to win? And it's like, hello. Right?
It's basically just right there for them. Yeah.
Then I start to do the calculations. We're watching the Russian event. And I'm like, okay, Annabelle Morozov with the new partner, they're improving. She seems like she's improved a lot. If they keep working at this pace, if they switch to represent France next season after these periods run out, okay, then you have like Deanna maybe in the US, Annabelle in France, thinking that Russia's still out. Okay, they're improving. How are they going to stack up against the other teams? And then you start to like.
That was the question I was going to ask you when we were talking about the Russian whatever event that is called. Where do you think Annabelle would be lining up right now?
In the US or in the world?
Or in general on the Grand Prix circuit?
Well, I think they're climbing. It's hard to tell because they're in a field without anyone else. They have a very engaging rhythm dance. Yes. The free is a good concept. I think it loses steam in the second half, but it's overall for a first year program for a new team, it's quite effective. She's improving a lot. She's better matched with this partner. They seem to get along better than she did with the previous partner. So they're on an upward trajectory.
Yeah.
You know, I think
again,
they need to improve their skating just a little bit to be truly top tier, right? And some of that is longevity with a new partnership.
Yeah.
But they've got all of the attention grabbing stuff that the Italians are missing.
Right.
Watch the Italians and then watch Annabelle and David.
And they both need what the other one has. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, these ones I think that can keep working. And if you watch how much Annabelle has improved from season to season to season to season. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're working with Stepanov and Buchan's coaches and Gorshkov, who worked under Oleg Epstein. Like they have some real technicians working with them. Should they keep improving? And it seems like their packaging is much better than Arina Zhuk and Svenin usually do with like the hideous programs they've made over the years for Stepanova and Buchan. So I'm thinking that they've got a shot.
Yeah. I mean, what was interesting also in France was to see this huge Canadian surge. Suddenly I'm like, are you top 5 at Worlds?
The one question I have with, besides the fact that they are Russian, and that I think is going to, I think if they switch,
Annabelle, okay,
Annabelle, right. If they switch to France next season, and granted she's also American, right? But the fact that she is Russian and her father is such like a symbol of Russia,
right?
In a distasteful way, is that going to hurt them?
Yeah.
Or is everyone just going to like turn a blind eye?
That's what I think.
But Deanna is also similar. Is also a symbol of Russia, and maybe even a more distasteful way,
and more current in some ways. Do you know what I mean with that connection?
Like it's not just the nepotism Olympics; it's like the connotations about who their parents are that helps and hurts them.
Right.
It's a big thing to get past for both teams. Yeah. But if you just focus on the skating, I think Annabelle and David might have a better shot long term than Deanna and Gleb. But yeah, I don't.
Yeah. Well, I think we were paying attention to Deanna and Gleb only because of that connection.
Well, yeah,
regardless.
People do get better at ice dance when they work hard enough. And Deanna and Gleb do seem like they are workers, right? Like they have been with the right people. And then we see, look at Green and Parsons, right? They have been this talented team. They were
on the verge of something last season.
On the verge, right? And then they have the opportunity. Are they going to go to Montreal? But then it's like, are they going to go to Montreal and be with all those other teams? Are they with Scott or are they with Marie-France? And does that create a whole problem? So they have to go to Scott instead of Marie-France. Ooh, that could create some real upheaval, right?
Yeah.
Because then you have to firmly say, yeah, well, you're better than Ponomarenko. Then are Ponomarenko and them going to stay, right? Like that's a chess match of like, okay, so they're not there. They're with Charlie and Tanith, but Charlie and Tanith seem not ready to package a team of this caliber.
Yeah, they missed the mark, unfortunately, this season. But I'm sure they know that. Do you think they have the self-awareness, or do you think they believe so much in that aesthetic that they're confused?
I think they know that they missed the mark and hopefully are not too defensive about it.
Yeah. And then you just wonder, are you already resigning the entire season to say, we'll try again next season, knowing that you can still make a change? Yeah.
It depends, because how often did Hubble and Donahue, people didn't like their material and they just like hunkered down, right?
Yeah, and revamp like 1 foot sequence or something, you know, and you're like, that wasn't sort of what people were saying needed the adjustment. But,
same thing as Chalk and Bates. Like they're flopping for the title this year. What are they going to do?
Right. Yeah.
As the blade turns, we're gonna watch.
The blade turns.
Right? Like, what are you gonna do? I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's like the biggest flop of. I mean, Green and Parsons, come on! Like they were moving, and they had good programs. So they had some cool moments, at least. With
I probably would have sent them to the Olympics. I was sort of on the.
Good. You own it. You would have sent them and own it. Okay.
Yeah.
Other people would have as well.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing to watch. I want to see what happens. I would scrap
again. Now this is a chance for Hawaii and Baker, because I do think they have very good material this season. They hit the mark right for them. So I think they will solidify themselves as above Green and Parsons and the other challengers.
I just want to say this.
Threat last season, I think.
Tanith, I've always thought you're an amazing broadcaster. And with all the
For
love in my
rugby.
heart,
Yeah. Or
with all the love in my heart, I believe your program to That's Entertainment is better than Green and Parsons free dance this year. More effective.
Not what you will. Yeah.
And when you ditched that program to That's Entertainment, you got Amelie. This team needs their Amelie moment.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah.
they could use it now.
Oh, yeah.
Not next season. Yeah.
Oh, no. We went to Amelie mid-season in 2007.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, it was a rush job. We got a new team. You have a lot of things going on. You have a child. We missed the mark. Let's not double down.
Yeah, it's a learning curve. Yeah.
Learning curve. Everyone will forget.
Learn.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 Interesting.
How about Tarasova and Morozov did one of their best free skates of all time earlier today? What was that?
What was that about? The triple toe, double toe, and they're just like do 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 do, and I was like, you guys. And she was even smiling at the end. He had a great haircut. He looked like he was in a good mood. I was like, oh.
I was watching being like, did they not make a mistake yet? No.
Right.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. They're coming into it, whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same. Valieva doing very well.
Okay, so the third iteration of her doing this free skate, yes, she's trying the quad. The first time it was exciting seeing this program. The second time she was trying the quad, less impact, less of a wow, but I appreciated some of the choreography and the movements. Now it seems like we're getting tired. It's less original to us. The lighting in this venue was terrible and it needed color.
Like a refrigerator or something.
And it was dark. It did not have the lighting of the Megasport complex. I was like, okay, she's having her Deanna outing. And we need to either up the training and get those quads and make us say wow again for Russian nationals, but this is her dip.
Yeah.
And with everything going on, I found
still missing the quad, obviously, and even in like the fumbling of the veil at the end, it just, especially when you know those things are coming, it just inherently becomes less unique. Again, the short program, aside from whatever that silly pantomime is in the opening moments, I like the short program for her. But the free, why does she have to live in sad? And you even see in the beginning, like her facial expression is a little different, but yet she was breathing quite heavily before the program, which I wasn't used to. And it was like a lot of like upper breathing, which also surprised me because I would have thought you wanted like a lower centered breath to sort of begin a program like that. But
interesting. Well, I think that's a sign that maybe this program isn't going to go well. When you see that she's nervous, maybe something happened.
Yeah, it was just all upper body sort of like breath.
I think you were astutely noticing that she was not fully prepared. No, I'm really serious. I think you're right. What I was going to say is I find with her, we've been told who she is 1,000,001 times. She's extraterrestrial. She's beautiful. She's this. Her personality has never come out in her programs. They're always either about being artistic, about her free leg, but I don't have any clue who Valieva as a person is.
Yeah.
In the way that we knew Sherbakova, we knew Trusova, we knew Kosternaya, I don't feel like we've ever gotten to know her. It's
the facial expressions in the program seem less genuine and more taught. So she's giving you looks, but I don't have a sense of the person. Maybe that's how she was able to keep that consistency, is she's sort of out of it in a way. But again, to me, I want to know how you feel.
Maybe she is more reserved than others, and she has worn the longer costumes, but they've also put these programs on her. The Bolero was very affected and put on her. This seems very affected and put on her. And obviously she's probably been in a dark period in her life for the last year, would have to be.
And now being asked to relive it every free skate.
But I have no idea who she is as a person. I couldn't tell you anything about her personality.
Yeah.
I think she's a fighter. I think she's beautiful.
Early, yeah.
Moves beautifully, but I have no idea who she is. So I don't know. It's a weird thing, but yeah.
It's just a conundrum. Yeah.
It's one of those things I think I don't know. I don't know that we'll ever know who she is, right? It's just kind of, yeah. I don't. I don't get
again,
any sense of her.
she's the one from Russia that would still very clearly be winning everything, should she be in the Grand Prix at the moment.
Would she?
Well, I mean, the technical content alone. And the consistency, even though the quad isn't there.
She'd be in the mix. She'd be in the mix for sure. But would we start to judge things as they are or judge with reputation?
That would be tricky because then, and are you judging on her reputation as a skater? Are you judging on trying to send a message? Like what, it would be very, very messy, the scoring of her this season. But
yeah, I don't know. I would be interested to see. I think that's a great discussion. Where do you think she would stack up against Cowrie at her best? Against, and is that
I think they'd have her winning everything.
With or without the triple axel and quad though?
Without.
And without, is she that more inherently special? She has great spins, she has good things, but are her crossovers that good this year? Are they?
No, I'm not saying I find her more interesting or that the skating skills are necessarily that much better. And again, it seems like we're being bamboozled, to quote because that's not a ride out free leg, that's a high kick after she lands. They're two different things, but yet they have mastered the idea of maximizing levels and points and things like that. So when you compare the complexity and sophistication of that choreography compared to someone like Loena this weekend, it seemed Loena would seem very empty by contrast.
Her posture seems less stunning than it was last season. It seems like it takes more work for her to skate this year. We haven't seen even Cowrie at her best yet, so I don't know. But I think, a lot of her.
It would make for an interesting showdown. But again, I think this is the right choice. I'm not saying I wish she was in the Grand Prix at all. Just sort of as we see both happening.
Well, what was your moment of the week this week?
Oh gosh, I forgot to think about that. You go first.
For me, it's Deanna and Max. You know, it's funny because I have a lot of Canadian friends who didn't pay any attention to them a year ago. You know, they were the American transplant. She was old. They weren't on board. But I just find it funny because we've been supportive of her when everyone thought we were delusional and whatever, right? But I just like to watch on social media and Instagram, all these people posting about them all the time now and watching how this movement.
Well, it's easy to get behind a winner.
Yeah, but I think people are paying attention. They're starting to believe it's happening now. I think people were like afraid to latch on emotionally.
Okay.
Wait.
Yeah.
Crazy and genius are a fine line, right?
That's
Where
right.
someone
That's
is
right.
pushing the boundaries, right? And they're getting on the other side of this, where maybe you thought she's crazy doing this. What is this? I don't know. I'm intrigued.
Again, you know, I will always eat my words because when someone is determined anything can happen, that was what I thought in 2014 when Aliona said she was going to find a new partner and keep going.
Same here.
And she must know something we don't, and she knew herself. And you know,
I would say she is crazy and perhaps a genius physically, right? Like both things.
Physical genius. That's a good way to refer to her, actually. Yes. Yeah,
she knew her body.
Yeah, I would say my moment of the week was Adam.
Oh, okay.
I like the body movements he's able to do. He really just knows how to move his body. It's very interesting for me to watch.
Honorable mention for Tarasova Morozov, not screwing the pooch in the free, although that music is still depressing as all hell. And
yeah, it was bland to begin with, and now that we're just seeing it over and over and over again, it is not getting less bland, I would say.
Hold it, edge, it looks sexy.